On March 10, 1974, a man emerged from the dense Philippine jungle, still carrying his Arisaka rifle. Hiroo Onoda had spent nearly 29 years fighting a war that ended in 1945. Born on March 19, 1922 in Kamikawa village, Hiroo Onoda was raised in a traditional Japanese family. His early years were deeply influenced by the cultural emphasis on honor and discipline. In 1942, Onoda was conscripted. He was sent to the prestigious Nakano school in Tokyo, an elite facility where he learned the dark arts of intelligence, propaganda, and guerrilla warfare. Onoda's training was rigorous. He mastered camouflage, improvised farming, and weapon maintenance. Instructors specifically groomed him to operate independently, often far from the main army's command and control structures. Crucially, Onoda's superiors at Nakano gave him an absolute order: never surrender and never take his own life. They promised that reinforcements would eventually arrive, no matter how long. On December 26, 1944, Onoda received his deployment orders. He was sent to Lubang Island, a small 125-square-kilometer island situated south of Manila, to establish a base for guerrilla resistance. His primary mission was to sabotage Allied forces. He had to destroy the island's airfield, sink enemy supply ships, and harass incoming boats to disrupt the planned Allied invasion path. Upon arrival, Onoda found a garrison already in dire straits. Allied forces had cut off resupply lines, and the island's defensive capabilities were collapsing under the pressure of the war. When American forces landed on Lubang, the Japanese defenses were quickly overwhelmed. Onoda and his remaining men retreated into the dense, mountainous jungle to sustain their guerrilla warfare campaign. The jungle became their only reality. Moving deeper into the island's mountainous center, they abandoned conventional warfare for survival, living off the land while watching for Allied movements nearby. Survival was a daily struggle. Onoda and his men survived on wild fruits, hunted game, and raided local farmers for rice to maintain their energy for sustained military operations. In 1945, Japan surrendered, but the message never reached the deep interior of Lubang. Onoda and his men remained in the mountains, unaware the conflict had officially concluded for everyone. Over the decades, authorities dropped leaflets and letters from families urging them to return home. Onoda dismissed them all as sophisticated Allied psychological operations meant to capture the remaining holdouts. One by one, the group dwindled. By 1950, one soldier surrendered. Another was killed in 1954, and the final companion fell in a 1972 shootout, leaving Onoda truly alone. Living as a guerrilla, Onoda occasionally engaged in deadly skirmishes with local police and residents. He viewed these encounters as defensive operations against an enemy occupying the island's critical terrain. In 1974, a Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki embarked on an incredible journey. He traveled to Lubang, determined to find the man that everyone else had long forgotten or dismissed. In February 1974, Suzuki encountered Onoda in the wild. Despite Onoda's initial caution and hostility, Suzuki persuaded him to hear the truth about the world he had left behind. Onoda insisted he could not stand down without orders from his commanding officer. Suzuki promised he would return with the one person who could officially authorize his departure, Major Yoshimi Taniguchi. Taniguchi arrived on Lubang Island in March 1974. Finding Onoda, he formally read the imperial orders to cease all military operations, finally dissolving the duty that had held him captive. On March 10, 1974, Onoda surrendered to Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos. He returned to Japan 2 days later, receiving a national hero's welcome that surprised the quiet, aging soldier. Onoda published his memoir, No Surrender, My 30-Year War, later that same year. He eventually moved to Brazil to become a cattle rancher, seeking the quiet life he had missed for decades. Hiroo Onoda eventually returned to Japan, where he lived until his death in 2014 at age 91. His story remains a haunting study of duty, psychological resilience, and absolute unwavering conviction. In his later years, Onoda established youth training camps in Japan. These programs emphasized the same rigorous discipline, survival skills, and resilience he had perfected over his 29-year jungle tenure. What drove Onoda to continue for so long? His training at the Nakano school had fostered an intense, nearly unbreakable psychological barrier that equated surrender with a betrayal of his deepest identity. Living constantly on the edge of detection, Onoda and his comrades developed heightened senses. Every sound in the forest, a bird call or breaking branch, was analyzed for potential signs of the enemy. Onoda's ancestors were samurai, and this lineage deeply influenced his worldview. He saw himself as a modern warrior upholding a centuries-old tradition of loyalty that transcended the simple passage of time. Over nearly 3 decades, Onoda learned the rhythm of the Lubang Mountains. He knew which plants were edible and how to navigate the terrain during the extreme shifts of the monsoon seasons. During long, quiet nights, Onoda often thought of his family in Wakayama. Despite the intense loyalty to his mission, the isolation of his life was a burden he carried alone every day. His service rifle was his most prized possession. Keeping it clean and functional for 3 decades without proper cleaning supplies was a test of his extreme ingenuity and technical skill. Onoda remained in a 1945 mindset while the rest of the world entered the era of the space race, global travel, and rapid technological advancement. He was a relic of a past that persisted. He never viewed himself as a straggler. To Onoda, he was an active-duty intelligence officer, fulfilling the core mandate of his training by staying undercover and ready for the next operation. His story persists as one of the most remarkable tales of the 20th century. It serves as a reminder of the power of discipline and the deep, often tragic, complexities of military duty. Even today, the mountains of Lubang guard the secrets of the caves and clearings where Onoda lived for decades. His presence left an indelible mark on the island's history and identity. Onoda's struggle reframes the war not just as a series of battles, but as a test of individual psychological resolve. His commitment was an extreme version of the era's ethos of total sacrifice. To some, he was a hero of loyalty. To others, his decades of warfare on civilians were a tragic, unnecessary crime. History remains divided on how to view his long-term guerrilla resistance. Solitude was his constant companion. For someone trained to operate as an intelligence officer, this isolation allowed him to maintain his focus, but it ultimately disconnected him from his own humanity. He kept his gear in working order for nearly 30 years. This required constant innovation, using local materials to replace worn components, showcasing the extraordinary ingenuity of the Nakano training he had received. The Lubang Mountains were his kingdom. He knew every path, stream, and hidden valley. This intimate knowledge allowed him to stay ahead of the search parties for almost 3 entire decades. As Onoda passed in 2014, he left behind a legacy that captivated the world. His life story continues to inspire debates on the nature of conviction, service, and the limits of human endurance. Local myths about the mountain soldier persist on Lubang today. The stories he spawned reflect a mix of fear, respect, and fascination for the man who refused to believe the war had concluded. Onoda's life shows that duty can be a double-edged sword. It provided him with purpose, but it also cut him off from the fundamental joys and growth of a life lived in freedom. Today we view Onoda not as a soldier of WWII, but as a man whose life became a paradox of historical commitment. His story forces us to reconsider what service really means. His spirit remained unbroken. Whether you agree with his mission or not, the sheer fact of his 29-year resilience stands as an unmatched feat of endurance in the annals of modern history. Onoda's life is permanently etched into our records. He is the last, most vivid example of the soldiers who continued the war, representing the extreme end of wartime indoctrination and loyalty. He lived his final years in the quiet gardens of Japan, far removed from the jungle. The man who had been a ghost in the Philippines was finally just a man once more. What can we learn from Onoda? Perhaps it is the importance of understanding our purpose, and knowing when that purpose, however noble, has reached its natural conclusion in a changing world. Onoda's voice, captured in his interviews and his book, echoes a time that seems like another world. Yet, the themes of duty and sacrifice remain as relevant and debated today as ever. In his last years, Onoda spent time writing and sharing his story, ensuring the records were accurate. He died in 2014, finally closing the book on the last Japanese holdout of the era. The story of Hiroo Onoda is incomplete without acknowledging the cost of the conflict he maintained. It is a tale of a man, a mission, and the shadows they cast over everyone. Onoda's life was an odyssey. From the Nakano school to the mountains of Lubang, and finally to the quiet of Japan, he remained a man defined by a commitment that surpassed time. Hiroo Onoda remains a complex figure. Was he a hero of unwavering duty or a ghost lost in the past? His story challenges us to question our own commitments in this modern age. His story is finally told. 29 years of isolation have been honored, analyzed, and now preserved. The soldier has come home, and the echoes of his war have finally fallen silent. History is full of extraordinary stories. If you want to explore more tales of duty and survival, hit the subscribe button and join us as we uncover the secrets of the past.